Tonight, we're just going to take a little time out and we're going to talk about a renewed mind. A renewed mind. Anybody know what a renewed mind is? Raise your hand and shout it out. I said, raise your hand and shout it out. And nobody raised their hand. Pastor, you the teacher? Huh? Yeah, a renewed mind, a changed mind. A changed mind. So we're going to talk about a changed mind for just a few minutes. And I was sharing with the seniors up in the cafe about the renewed mind and how all through, you look in through the Galatians and Romans and all these churches that Jesus had to send people to speak. He had to send Paul to speak to the church. And a lot of times, all through the Bible, he did a lot of his speaking to the church. Does that make any sense? Because the church is where everybody is right, right? Right? Wrong. That's why he sent people to speak to the church. He sent people to speak to the church for whatever area they was weak, wherever they was lacking. He sent Paul, one of his apostles, somebody to speak to the church, to get their mind right, to get their mind right. In Romans, he says, I beseech you therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, which is holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. All through the Bible. Over in Revelations, the church of Ephesus, they was doing big things. Big things. As a matter of fact, there's 5 things that John said to the church of Ephesus that they was doing right. He told the church, he said, y'all are dynamic. In other words, y'all are active. Y'all got it going on. Y'all like Lifehouse Live. It's popping. This is what people want to be. It's a dynamic. And not only was they dynamic, but they was also dedicated in the things that they was doing. When they was doing things, they was about that life. They did that. And they was determined. Not only was they dedicated, but they was determined. They weren't going to let anything stop them from accomplishing their mission that they was out to do. So they was dedicated. Are y'all dedicated to God? Y'all dedicated to the things of God? Good Lord, I am. I try to be. Y'all, anybody try to be dedicated to the things of God? All right. Not only was they dedicated and determined, but they was disciplined in doing the things of God. They was disciplined in doing the work of the ministry. And they was discerning about doing it. They knew what was of God and what was not of God. They was doing things for God. They had it going on. You hear me? That sounds like a church you want to be at, right? Y'all ain't gonna raise your hands, y'all crippled? Don't that sound like a church you want to be in? I mean, look at all that stuff they got going on. But yet, John had to come to the church of Ephesus because guess what? They had missed something. They had done all those things, all the work of the ministry, doing all those great things. But he said, nevertheless, I have this one thing against you. What do you think Jesus had to say to the church of Ephesus? What do you think that he had against them? If they had all that stuff going on, what do you think Jesus had against them? Huh? Their state of mind? Their state of mind, that's good. Anybody else? Maybe they didn't let outsiders in? Pastor Hughley? That's it. They left their first love. Listen, you could be doing a great thing, but look, what Christ is concerned about is the relationship that you have with him. We cannot lose that love that we have for Jesus Christ. We got to get our minds right that no matter what, listen, we could be doing the work, we could be doing all these great things. Y'all can be But listen, he is concerned about the relationship that you have with him. You know, it's kind of like this. There's a book called Not a Fan. And in this book, it talks about a relationship. And they says that in this book, the female sometimes asks the guy this question, Pastor Hughley, and they call it the DTR. And the DTR, it says to determine determine our relationship or something like that, to define our relationship. And guys don't like to be asked that question because therefore the female know how committed he really is. And so that's what Christ want to know. Define your relationship with Christ. What is it like?
Excellent.
Excellent? I like that. Excellent. So we have to define our relationship with Christ. That's what he wants. But we have to get our minds right. Oh. I knew this was going to happen. I'm trying to use my phone for my Bible and my wife is calling me. I knew it was going to happen. Okay. So he says, I beseech you. In other words, Paul is telling the church with an urgency. I'm not telling you this is something for y'all to put off to do tomorrow. Do it today. I beseech you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies. Meaning, we don't live for self anymore. We present our bodies to God. We die to live. He says, present your bodies a living sacrifice. And there's a way to do it. You present your body to God, holy and acceptable. Present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. And then he says that's your reasonable service. In other words, that's what we should be doing anyway. We're not doing him no favor when we present our bodies to Christ. That's what we should be doing anyway. Then it says, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So we got to get our mind right. We can't be like this world. As Christians, people should see you different. If they don't see you different, you conform to this world. If I can't look at you and tell there's something about you that's different than everybody else or different from other people, guess what? You conform to this world. Sometimes we like to fit in. We like to blend in. We like to be in with the in crowd. But that's not what the scriptures is telling us. He's telling us, do not be conformed to this world. But we have to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Because, you know, our minds can take us places. Your mind can take you places and you can get stuck. You could be sitting up in church thinking about something you have no business thinking about. Your mind can take you places. Your mind can make you feel certain type of ways when you shouldn't be feeling those ways. All these type of things operate through the mind. Fear. Anybody ever been fearful of something? Been afraid? And the more you dwelt on it, guess what? The bigger the problem got.
Yes.
You know? My wife, she said, she shared with us today in her Bible class, and she said, whenever we have fear, when we have anxiety, we have all these type of things going on in our mind, she says, just like a car, you take your car to the mechanic to get it fixed. And when you take it there, you can't fix it yourself, but your mechanic can fix it, right? So when you take your car there, you don't pull up a chair and ask the mechanic, do he need help? You don't pull up a couch and take a nap while he's fixing on it. But what we do is we give it to the one who can fix it, and guess what? We leave it there. Because if we don't, in our mind, that problem is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But whenever it's in God's hands, guess what? There's nothing too hard for God. There's nothing too big for God. But we have to get our minds right. When it comes to being young people, being Christians, walking the walk, talking the talk, not only hearing the word, but being doers of the word, guess where it starts at? It starts in your mind. You got to have a changed mind. The prodigal son, he had everything, y'all. Y'all heard the story. The prodigal son had everything. And he asked for his inheritance. He said, give me my stuff, Daddy. I want to go. In other words, he basically wishing his daddy was dead. He didn't even care. And his mind was all, that's how jacked up his mind was. And so he takes off and he goes out and just lives crazy. Spending up all his money. He had all his homeboys with him. You know, when you got money and you got it going on, you got your own car, right? Everybody want to ride. So everybody was hanging around the prodigal son until he came to the point to where everything was gone. Everything was gone. And he found himself in a hog pen. And I don't know what type of hog pen some of us have found ourselves in. But in that instance, when you find yourself in the hog, you realize what you left when you was in the presence of your father. And the scripture said he came to himself. In other words, he got his mind right. And he went back to the father. And you know what his father did? His father was waiting on him with his arms open, waiting on him to return. And that's how he is with us. He's waiting on us to get our minds right, to return back to him. He loved on his son. He gave him a ring, a nice coat, and had a big party. And that's what Christ is wanting to do to us. That if our minds is not right, it's never too late to get your mind right. Amen? Amen. God bless you.
I want to tell you guys something, man, that, you know, that whole mind thing is on point. Guys, a lot of times the reason why the way we are is because what's up in here. Mm-hmm. You know, I had a good friend of mine who was a youth pastor back in the 90s, man, church I kind of grew up in. He said it sometimes that old stinking thinking that get in our minds, you know what I'm saying? That keep us from our mind being renewed. You see? So sometimes we got to kick that stinking thinking out. But the only way that's going to come out, man, is you got to get in that relationship with Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you something, man. You know, it's still going to be a push. It's still going to be a struggle. But you got somebody with you. Amen. You got somebody with you that's going to help you work that stuff out in your mind. So this week, man, the rest of this week, really focus on your relationship with Jesus, man. Get in that word. Really start reading that word. Hey, turn off P. Diddy and Chris Brown and Jay-Z and Beyonce and all them. Turn that off, man. Turn that off. And maybe listen to some Lecrae or some, you know, some Ty Tribbett or listen to some Christian stuff, man. The more that we get in our mind, the stronger and the quicker our mind will begin to transform. The things that we watch on TV, you see the things that we listen to in our ears, man, where's our mind at? Our mind is right here, ain't it? So anything that go in your ear, anything that go in your eyes, Gates. Be open like this. Come on. Come on. Okay, I know, right? Hey, for real, be careful about what you listen to. Be careful about what you watch, man. Because here's the deal, Julie. Hey, y'all, right here. See, get your mind right. Get your mind right. You gotta get your mind right, man. That's not just something being mean, a mean saying. It's the truth. It's the truth. And here's the deal. Can't nobody make you do this. Nobody can make you do it. So guys, that's our prayer for you tonight, is that you really begin to allow the Lord to transform your mind, renew your hearts, and then, man, run the race. Run the race. And even though you stumble, even though you might fall, get back up, man, and keep running the race. Thank you, Brother Keith.